Hey y'all, today I have another story time for you guys. This time is obviously the title. My principal had a thing for me, and I'm not even gonna lie here. I have a story for you guys that I've been wanting to tell for a long time. I kind of waited until I was... Okay, there's been a fly in my room for like a whole week now, and it's still alive. Like, I keep my door open and it hasn't thought about leaving my room. Like, it's literally been in here. I've been to 4 different high schools throughout my entire high school experience, and at both of these schools I played a specific sport. So no one's really gonna know who this principal is, and I kind of don't want to say his name either because of receipts that I have, which I don't think I can show because that will reveal who this person is. So, but I will get to the receipts at the end of the video. Basically, I played tennis at one school, and then I moved to another school and played tennis. I played varsity tennis. I considered myself like a pretty good player. I won tournaments. I still have like a medal from my first tournament, but that's besides the point. Really, what's to prove here is that I was a good player, which will get to the part of the story that you need to know, is that I was a really good player. So, the school that I moved to scheduled a tournament the same day as midterms, which I am like, I was a person that was like, oh, I'm gonna go to a private elite school, so I have to skip sports because education is first. Like, that was my mentality throughout all of this, throughout high school. So basically what had happened was I told my coach that I was gonna skip the tournament because school is first. And so this coach got so mad. This coach was like, oh, you need to be there for your team. Like, you're going to let your team down if you don't come. Like, we can schedule something. You can take your midterms before the tournament. You can take your midterms after the tournament. But you need to be here because you're, like, a really good player and we need you. So in my head, I was like, you know what? School comes first. So whatever happens out of this, I'm going to end up skipping the tournament. And so I told my mom about it. I was like, do you think I should skip the tournament? Do you think I should find a way to take my midterm somehow? And she was like, well, do what you want to do because that's your grade on the line. And like the way she said it made it seem like I should do the right thing and take my midterm on the same day. So I talked to my teachers and talked about a way that I could take my midterms like early or before, and literally nothing worked out. I told my coach like, hey, my teachers won't let me take it before and I'm sure as hell not taking it after. And my coach got so pissed that she basically ordered me to go to the principal to see what he had to say, even though he had no like point in being in this because it was my decision in the first place. So she made me go down to the principal's office like 2 days after all of this broke down. The timeline for this is kind of off, but the timeline doesn't matter because it's about what the principal said during this meeting. So basically, I go to the principal's office the next day, and I'm kind of like standing outside because he's on the phone, and so I sit out there, and then finally he like tells me like, oh, come in. And so I sit down on the chair and he's like, okay, tell me your side of the story. And so basically I'm telling him everything that I'm telling y'all right now. And then he's like, you know what? I think you're letting your team down. And I was just like I literally made that face in the room. I was like, and then he tried to explain himself like, you know, you're a really good player on this team. It seems like the team really needs you. They want you to be there for them. And I feel like, you know, you're gonna let your team down if you don't go. And so in my head, I was kind of just like, wouldn't a principal for a school be more accepting of the fact that I wouldn't want to go because I'm focusing on my education? Like, he's not a coach, he's a principal. So I kind of just sit there and shake my head. I was like, I don't know. And then he tried to justify it with like other stupid examples. And then he went on to talk about, you know, my midterms and how I couldn't take it before, but I could take it after, and I was just not for it. I was like, you know what, my parents don't want me to, so I'm not going to. And then, like, all while he's telling me these things, like, my phone is, like, vibrating, and I have LED flash notifications, so it's just, like, flashing in my lap. And so I look at like who it's from, and it's like my friend from tennis, because the people in tennis don't know what's going on. They think I'm like in detention or something because I can't go to the tournament, and they're all texting me at the same time like, where are you? And so while this is like going on, my phone is flashing, the principal, I guess he gets distracted or something because my phone's going off. So he's like, who's texting you? And first of all, just taking it back for a second, away from the story, my boyfriend would not ask who's texting me. My parents wouldn't ask who's texting me. So I'm just confused about, like, why he wouldn't say, like, oh, why is your phone on during this meeting? And he would go straight to why or who's texting me. And so I was just like, oh, it's one of my friends from tennis. He's really worried. And then I guess since I said he proceeded to ask, oh, so that's your boyfriend? And I was like, no, it's not my boyfriend. Like, just because I play a sport with someone of a different gender and he's texting me does not mean that he's my boyfriend. Like, he's my friend who's a boy, but we're not dating. Like, I didn't tell him that, but I was like, no, he's not my boyfriend. And then he proceeded to say, okay, do you have a boyfriend? And that's when I was like, I told him that he was not my boyfriend. And then he proceeded to ask, well, do you have a boyfriend? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, it really doesn't. And, like, at this point, I was kind of getting weirded out. And so I was just, like, looking out the window the whole time while he was talking to me. I wasn't giving him any attention, any eye contact, because I was getting uncomfortable. And then he proceeded to say, well, have you ever had a boyfriend? And have you dated someone older than you? And, like, that was kind of, like, getting to me. And, like, my answers were, like, very in short to the point. And so when he asked me that, I was like, no. And I think he could tell, like, I was getting irritated. So he started to switch the conversation into, like, what do my parents do as their jobs? And, like, what this kind of got me mad, because it went from a conversation about tennis to a conversation about myself and my family and wondering about my personal life. And at that point, I told him what my parents do just because, I don't know, that's, like, the respectful thing to do, I guess. And from that, he noticed that he was going off on a tangent, so he tried to bring it back to school. Kind of, like, sits back in his chair, and then he puts his hands like this, and he's just like, what are your grades like? And I feel like he asked me what my grades were to see if, like, I was actually being truthful. Like, if I actually wanted to focus on my grades, like, I would skip the tournament for that. Because if I had bad grades, like, there wouldn't be a point in taking my exam. Like, I don't know what his logic was, but I was kind of putting pieces together and kind of figuring that out. So I was like, oh, I have all A's right now. And he was like, you know what, let me go check on that. Like, he couldn't believe that a black girl could be successful in school. And so he went to my counselor's office, printed out my transcript, and was looking at my grades, and he was like, oh, wow, like, maybe you should take this exam on this day. And I was like, yeah, I was going to in the first place, so I don't know why we're having this meeting. And so after he looks at my grades, he's like, you know what, you can go to class now, and I'm gonna tell the coach that you won't be attending the tournament. And I was like, okay, great, I won't have to deal with you anymore. I'm not gonna do tennis next year because I feel like this is all just a bunch of, like, focusing on sports and not my grades. So I'll never have to see you again or my coach, and I'm just done. I thought wrong, because the next time I saw him I was on my way to lunch, and I saw him walking in the hallway. And the thing about lunch, though, is that if you're in A lunch, you can't go in B lunch. If you're in B lunch, you can't go in A lunch. I was trying to get through to the dance room. I was through B lunch to get to the dance room, but I was in A lunch, so I would have gotten in trouble. So I saw him, and I thought it was, like, the perfect opportunity to tell him, like, hey, I'm going to the dance room, so don't get me in trouble for crossing through B lunch. And he was like, oh, like, it's okay, babe. Like, when he said babe, like, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about it too in detail, but maybe it's a Texas thing, I don't know. But he literally said, like, oh, it's okay, babe, I'll stand right here at the door and wait for you. And so I go to the dance room, I get my stuff, and then I come back to the door, and he was like, oh, like, you got everything? Like, okay, good. And he, like, pats me on the shoulder. Like, first of all, there's no need to touch me. Second of all, there's no need to call me babe. Like, I don't know if this is, like, the slang they use or what, but I just felt so uncomfortable when he said that. And I was like, I really hope I won't have to deal with this man, like, ever again. And then I was wrong once again, because I come to find out that, like, I don't actually know when this was. Actually, it was when I moved to the different school is when he followed me on Twitter. This man followed me on Twitter and he liked one of my tweets. At this point, like, I was kind of laughing at everything he did, but like at this point I was cracking up because not only did he follow me, but he liked one of my tweets. Like, I wasn't even like scared at this point. I was just laughing and cracking up. And like, I have the receipts to this, but I know a lot of my friends will find out which principal this is if I show his account and like where it says like followed you. But I also don't want to show it because if I blur all of that out, it could just look like anyone followed me. But it's literally the principal, and I was weak. I was on the ground laughing, and like to this day he still follows me. Like, I don't know if he follows me because he knows that I left that school, so he wanted to keep a part of me. I don't know. I'm gonna keep my assumptions to myself because I feel like I'm kind of going overboard at this point. This man has a family too. He has a child.